Hello, everybody. Hello, Andre. Hello, Rauka.
Hi,
Hello.
hi, Iona.
How
And
are
hello,
you
everybody.
feeling now that the panel you are expecting the longest has come? We are going to discuss about MiCA regulations and lots of legal and tax stuff, which might seem maybe boring at a first glance, but I'm sure that you all have interacted with this. I'm sure that you want your businesses to stay safe, for your projects to be, safeguarded from this perspective. So we are here to explain lots of stuff from this perspective. We try to identify some hot topics in the legal and tax area. We are going to speak a bit about how businesses are being regulated, because in Europe, we all know there is no legal framework applicable at the level of the European Union yet. And while, there are licenses, there is a big discussion as to what to do in advance of MiCA and how life will be after MiCA. Then a second topic that we will want to address, it's about tokenization and utility tokens versus security tokens and financial instruments. And finally, the third one, it's going to be about stablecoins, what we consider to be a very interesting use case. And we have here what we think are the best persons, the most suited to help us clarify this. Andre is a legal expert, Deloitte Central Europe partner. Raluca is tax expert, Deloitte as well. And we are going to start with the first topic. So we all hear a lot about MiCA. There are various discussions. Maybe I will start with you, Andre, and what do you think it's, maybe you can share, first of all, an angle, something that we have not heard in the space about MiCA. No pressure, but people are here for this panel, so.
Great. Thanks a lot, Iona, for the introduction. I don't know how many of you know how big is MiCA. For years, people in the crypto space said, with a bit of hope, institutions are coming. Yeah, that's like the moment when we will be in triumph. Yeah. Well, institutions have come big times, and institutionalization, if I may use this, improperly use this word, also came. So MiCA has a bit over 160 pages. And ESMA, which is the European Securities Markets Authority, which is actually enforcing MiCA, and which is the European securities regulator of all securities regulators in Europe, has started to pass secondary legislation, which is currently in draft form. If you look at the text of MiCA and the text of the secondary legislation that we have as of now, we're a bit over 600 pages. My estimation is that by the time ESMA completes to issue all the RTS, all the secondary legislation, we'll probably have like 1,000 pages of regulations governing crypto asset services. And I'm talking, this would be direct regulations. And then you have indirectly applicable regulations, whether it's tax, AML, and so on. So my first comment here is Europe went on in style big time when it came to regulating crypto assets, which is going to be a big challenge and a big burden for a lot of the DeFi, not the DeFi, a lot of the crypto native players, because most of the players are not used with that level of regulation. On the other hand, is also an opportunity. Okay? Why? Because the way that crypto space is being regulated in MiCA is actually resembling a lot to how capital markets and financial institutions are regulated, which implicitly, one, acknowledges that we have a financial space, and secondly, that instead of being banned, and instead of going throughout endless litigations and disputes about it, we come and say we take it seriously at European level, we regulate it in a similar manner, okay, and we move ahead with it. So that's one aspect that I think is very, very important to point out.
Raluca, now MiCA, as we know it, it's rather about the legal framework, so it's not in itself a tax regulation. But I would like to ask you, is there any impact on the tax framework, maybe where we are from this perspective?
Well, actually, MiCA is highly relevant for the tech space as well, because actually, I will need to put a bit of context around this. I don't know how many of you know, but hopefully this has hit the news for a while now. The idea is that at a broader level, meaning at OECD level, a standard has been developed around the exchange of information on crypto assets. This standard is further, let's say, brought risen into the European legislation, meaning that a current framework for administrative cooperation between tax offices within the European Union is being amended for the 8th time. And I'm going to mention this law going forward as DAC 8. And this has been specifically drafted to, let's say, regulate the reporting on crypto assets transfers. What does it mean? It means that, and by the way, the European part is very recent. It has been adopted unanimously this Tuesday. It will have 20 days up until publication in the official journal, and then there will be time to have it implemented in the national legislations, and starting 2026, we will have the reporting in place, yeah? Which means that this is where the DAC 8 connects with MiCA, because European legislation needs to be coherent, and it actually reflects in big part all the definitions, and it uses the same language and the same approach as it is done in MiCA. And crypto asset service providers will have to report on an annual basis in aggregate terms per individual client, yeah, using their tax identification number, the transactions made. This is with the aim to make this visible to the tax offices, such that at each country they will be able to enforce their national law around taxing those gain, proceeds, and so on and so forth. What is also, let's say, important to mention here is that there is also a bit of a, let's say, divergence against MiCA, in the sense that whilst MiCA does not deal with staking and lending, the DAC 8 requires that staking and lending will be also reported, yeah? So currently there is a lot of debate around how to properly define staking, such as to allow the crypto asset service providers to properly distinguish between the various transactions that they need to report and identify as such. If I'm not mistaken, I think that the only other thing which is important is that it does not deal with peer-to-peer transactions. So those transactions will not need to be reported, but let's say the flows from the crypto asset service provider to self-hosted wallets will need to be reported. The only thing that remains is actually clarity at national level when it comes to how taxation actually works in this space, because each country has its own, let's say, pace in regulating this. Some are more regulated, like Germany, others are way back.
Thank you so much, both of you. Maybe another angle from where to approach MiCA, but not only that, is the one of tokens. So we have in the audience businesses, projects, they have issued tokens in the past. Europe seems like maybe a safe haven from perspective of not having the issue and the risks of having tokens qualified as securities. So we do not read daily in the news press about the Security Exchange Commission, sanctioning or affecting businesses from this perspective. I think the idea would be to try to see whether this is something that is going to change after MiCA. Is it really Europe a safe haven right now? I mean, the only moment when it's being relevant whether a token may be qualified as security or not, it's when you want to list it on an exchange in the US, most likely, and you have to produce a legal opinion saying that, you know, the token is an utility token. But do projects need to do something from this perspective? Are they really, you know, that safe as we think they are? Will it change after MiCA?
Yeah, it will change, it will not change, yeah? Because in reality, even today, if you issue a token and address it to the public, you should talk to your lawyer and make sure you know for sure that that token is not a security, and more specifically, not a tradable security. Because, you know, some people tend to believe that because something is a token, it's on blockchain, it necessarily means it does not fall under any law. Well, it depends. What MiCA says is that, and it says this specifically, that is not dealing with tokens which are financial instruments, okay? So if they are financial instruments, they are not within the scope of MiCA. So from that perspective, the fact that MiCA comes into place does not change the thing, because it does not aim to regulate security tokens, okay? Where it is an impact is in the fact that when you will be issuing a white paper, you'd have to make sure that you had the legal opinion confirming that that token is not a security. And the issue of a white paper becomes mandatory, and as a tip of advice, ESMA already recommended to the market players to start considering to prepare white papers in line with MiCA, even, you know, so MiCA is not yet applicable. In other words, you know, Christmas is coming with MiCA, because, by the way, MiCA is literally coming on Christmas next year, yeah? That's when it's 24 December next year, yeah? MiCA becomes effective, okay? But Christmas, you know, is not going to bring only gifts, yeah? So you have to make sure. And you asked me whether, do we have a risk in Europe to see stuff like what's happening in US? First of all, in US, there are two types of things happening. One, the famous or infamous, whatever you want to call them, litigations between SEC and various market players. SEC claiming that certain tokens are securities, and therefore, you know, you should observe the securities laws. But there are also enforcement actions by the commodities regulator, who is also saying, oh, no, we don't believe they are securities. We believe they are commodities. Guess what? There's a law also for trading commodities, yeah? So my advice to everybody is make your assessment right. Beware that simply putting a disclaimer in a white paper, I've seen a lot of those saying this is not a security. Well, that's a valuable disclaimer if it is not a security, yeah? So I would stop here for now.
Speaking of tokens, Raluca, might not be relevant. I don't know how many of you in the room have tokens or crypto in your wallets, but still I will ask the question. So if we are individuals holding tokens, being from staking, trading, minting, what would be, I don't know, top 5 things that we need to know in order to be tax optim, tax secure, relevant from this perspective?
Well, it's a tough question because you know, this space is not properly regulated in the tax law. The Romanian, at least, tax law is quite general, and there have been, you know, a series of myths with, as time goes by, are being debunked. Some by the practice, some by the very tax offices. So. So currently there is no distinction between, let's say, crypto asset trading along any other type of token. But that doesn't mean that you know, any sort of income being generated out of these assets is not taxable. So on one hand, we have what we would call, you know, crypto asset investment, yeah, I mean, mere trading, and these are taxable operations and are to be reported individually and taxed with 10% between the sell price minus acquisition price, with some limited non-taxable amounts, but they are immaterial. However, you know, this becomes actually taxable when people would typically take out the money from an exchange, to fiat, because that is when a real tangible gain occurs. But here comes the other myth, in the sense that this is not actually the only time when a taxable operation occurs, and I think individuals need to be aware that they may, obtain certain assets via different means, like for employment, for a service provision that they would do on their own, for actually creating some digitalized art or stuff like that. And each of these cases represent, a different type of source of income and need to be analyzed separately and have their own tax regime, yeah? So it's not a matter of fact that I did not take it into fiat. I actually might have a taxable moment if I deliver a service, yeah? The moment I receive that crypto asset, yeah?
If I may,
please.
Just coming back a bit, complete something about, add something about the qualification as securities. Yeah, there's not necessarily like the worst thing that could happen, provided that you understand it upfront and you deal with it accordingly. Yeah, and there's a piece of legislation that, to my surprise, was less debated in the crypto space. It's called the DLT pilot regime. It's a European regulation that creates a regulatory sandbox, allowing for the creation of market infrastructure. I'm talking financial markets infrastructure, capital markets infrastructure, based on distributed ledger technology, blockchain being an example of DLT, okay? And in my view, that is the basis for one of the best use cases that blockchain can have, and which have already been implemented in practice in US. I mean, you have heard the news, I think it was last week, JP Morgan came out and said they tokenized BlackRock money market funds units, okay? The money market fund is a huge market globally, okay? So tokenizing financial instruments on the blockchain is really a big thing. The advantages being 24 out on 24 trading, atomic settlement, and so on and so forth, yeah? So, I would give a heads up to the audience, to the developers in the audience, if you have not already done that, Google after DLT pilot regime. There is a program you can apply under the regulatory sandbox and try to develop means to tokenize financial instruments, okay, via blockchain. That's a fantastic use case, okay? And those would be clear security tokens, yeah? And another remark, is a token, yes or no, a security? Very complicated to give an answer in Europe currently. But again, two recommendations, and I'm going to stop here. One, there is a survey done in 2019 by ESMA, again, European Securities Market Authority. They've asked all the securities regulators in Europe. They presented them with 5 or 6 concrete token cases and asked them which of those would be a security, and more specifically a tradable security or a financial instrument. Very interesting lecture, I highly recommend it, very educative. And last on the list, Q1 next year, so before end of March next year, ESMA is supposed to come out with clear guidelines on how to qualify whether a token is a security or not. So at that moment, things will be way more clear.
Yes, and if I may add, once this comes into place, then we will have an additional layer of complication on the tech side, because you will need to be very much aware on what are you holding, whether a crypto asset or a security, because the tax regime will change completely. Yeah.
Great.
It's not only bad news, Joanna.
Only good news.
It's clarity.
Clarity which brings legitimacy.
But it's also obstacles, yeah? Because what you said about the reporting obligations, yeah, that will be a big burden on the crypto asset service providers, I think.
It's going to be on the crypto asset service providers, but at the same time, it's easier to be like that than on the individual investors, because that would be really a killer for the industry more than it is if you put it on the shoulders of the service providers.
Maybe one last question, maybe a yes or no question, although lawyers do not usually answer with yes or no to questions. I heard a rumor that MiCA does not cover NFTs. Is that true, Andrei?
Yes and no. In the sense that, yes, prima facie answer is no, it does not cover NFTs. However, to the extent you'd have the NFTs fractionalized in what would be fungible and tradable fractionalized NFTs, that would be covered. Okay, so that's the simple answer. Also, I would say be very careful with NFTs because it really depends what rights do you embed in the NFT. And depending on those rights and depending on the NFTs, yeah, you could go into the direction of the financial instruments. However, it's way less likely than it is for other type of tokens, simply because of the non-fungible nature, yeah?
Okay, going to the topic of stable coins, let's speak stable coins. It's a huge area in these days because, you know, they are those tokens that are being backed one by legal tender, so the volatile element is not present there. You can have discussions with banks and regulators about stable coins. They are more receptive, and we tend to see them more and more as a use case that it is being applied in practice. Theoretically, we identified around 10 stable coins backed by euro at the level of the European Union. Now, from a practical perspective, there is a discussion in case of each of such token, whether there is actually a stable coin or another type of financial instrument, about, you know, the volumes that are being processed or how practical it is. For us, it's a very interesting discussion. We at MultiversX are in a position in which we have the necessary licenses from this perspective. We were curious if you have a point of view, Andre, on, I mean, why do you think it's still not present, and why this opportunity, as we see it, huge from all points of view, like commercial, you know, this bridging the gap between financial financing and, let's say, the crypto space, which has the advantage of not having the volatile element, is not explored like 2 years ago, maybe?
Yeah. First of all, I would say, I don't know how many people know, because I was surprised to see that a lot of people from the crypto space did not seem to be aware about the fact that recently, a subsidiary of Societe Generale, yeah, one of the most important financial groups in Europe, named Forge, issued a euro stablecoin based on Ethereum public blockchain. Yeah. Interesting choice, yeah, that they put it on a public blockchain. So again, I'm talking about a subsidiary of a large financial group. It's not a venture capital or something like that. That's an interesting signal to me. Yeah. Now, what's interesting is the way they did it. I read their white paper, and by the way, very interesting lecture. I recommend it to everybody. What's interesting to me is that they position it that this is not e-money, but rather placed it under some special French law. Okay. Now, and I'm going to come back to your question, but now the point is, when you say stable coins, you have to think, what are they stable versus what are they stable? Yeah. How do you maintain their stability? If they're backed by a currency, then under MiCA, it will be very clear that they are e-money, okay? Which means the e-money legislation will also apply to them. And maybe that is one of the answers to your question, that before MiCA, it was not entirely clear what is the nature of these stable coins, what would you qualify? I have to admit that first time I heard about them, I said, this is e-money. Yeah.
Truth being told, I mean, in our discussions with regulators, we try to explain about stable coins like 1 year ago, 2 years ago, and then this year the discussions were like, oh, okay, so it's e-money, but it's not on card, it's on blockchain. Yeah. Okay, so you just apply the legal regime from e-money, like the same for the reserves and all that, and like, okay, that's easy.
and it makes all the sense that they said that, because there's a very clear principle in the e-money directive saying that it is technology neutral. So, you know, whether you use blockchain as a technology for e-money or other technology, that should not change much as long as it's a sound technology. Yeah. So maybe an answer to your question is that people were a bit hesitant in terms of issuing a stable coin because they were not clear about under what legislation it falls, yeah? I think MiCA already gives clarity by basically saying only credit institutions and e-money institutions will be allowed to issue stable coins. Okay, and again, I'm talking about stable coins, not about asset reference coins, yeah?
Raluca, what is, from a tax perspective, maybe the relevance here when we change from other type of digital assets into stable coins, from stable coins to fiat? Does the topic stablecoin raises any tax challenge? Is there any discussion from this perspective?
It does raise, and I think we get this question quite a lot when we speak to people in this space. Truth is that right now my interpretation is that we would treat stablecoin same as any other crypto asset, and the transfer, as I explained before, as long as it is kept in that space, should not trigger an immediate tax liability. But hearing Andre here saying that if we would be get to that space where stable coins are seen as e-money and then are to be issued by credit institutions, then I think we are speaking about a different regime. I mean, we will transition. It's like taking it out to fiat, yeah? You are in a regulated space, and that would require, a taxable moment.
So again, good news and bad news, yeah? The good news is that
again,
the regulation will bring adoption, for sure, yeah? I personally have no doubt about that, yeah? But it also will impact potentially the tax treatments, yeah? Because stablecoins, are, I believe, largely used as a way of, turning your crypto into a stable asset without exiting in fiat, yeah? Which, as long as it's not taxable, that's great. But when this change, it changed.
Maybe a last question, Andre, on a bit about MiCA and try to rehabilitate it even more. So now projects which have this CASP, DASP, VASP type of license, depending on the country, they are either digital assets, virtual assets, crypto assets type of licenses. They need to take regulatory steps in all the countries where they are present, more or less, because this type of services that are being offered, they can be accessed from anywhere. Various jurisdictions, they have various definitions on what is marketing, what is reverse solicitation. So it's very complicated for a project, for a business like we are, to be regulatory compliant in each jurisdiction where a certain service can be accessed. And to make things even more complicated now that we also have the Brexit, we have UK, which adds complexity to the matter. Would MiCA, for sure it will change from perspective of the fact that it will make a license obtained in a state of the European Union usable in the other states. Now, going back a bit to UK, how are things from this perspective? Is a business regulated in UK? Can it serve European Union clients, and maybe vice versa? Our licenses that we have in various countries from the European Union, can we use them in UK?
Okay, so what MiCA does is what the European legislation did for financial services in general. It introduces the principle of passporting, which means exactly what you said. Once I licensed in one EU member state, I'm able to passport that with a quite simple procedure in any other state. When it comes to non-EU member states like UK, several things to be said. No, passporting from Europe to UK or from UK to Europe doesn't work. Okay. However, to my knowledge, there are similarities, not identity, but there are similarities in terms of how UK is in process of regulating VASPs, for example, and how MiCA is doing, which means we may reach a level of what is called equivalence of regulation, okay? And that could make it easier for a UK license to operate in Europe, but would still be subject to an authorization process. It will not be automatic passporting, okay? So that's something to be kept in mind. Another point to mention here is transitioning to MiCA, yeah? As of now, we have several types of crypto asset service providers. Some of them are operating under general principles of law, like what's happening in Romania. Okay, we don't have some law to prohibit to be a crypto exchange. Okay, we do have the anti-money laundering law, Law 129, which says that there will be secondary legislation that will establish under which terms you'd be licensed for crypto, fiat crypto, and custodial wallets. Yeah, that secondary legislation is missing. Okay, and we have other countries which have legislation saying how do you get a license there, strictly under the AML rules. And then we have other countries in Europe which have a much more developed legislation, and actually they're enhancing it to look like MiCA. Yeah, those are the best countries in my view. Okay, because for the entities licensed there, it will be way easier to get the MiCA license. They will be much more prepared. A heads up to the operators which operate in jurisdictions like Romania, yeah, Romania or others, where you don't have a special legislation, not even under the AML rules, because it's debatable whether what will next Christmas bring to them. Yeah, as I said, next Christmas puts MiCA into place, and it says that the home member states can still allow another 18 months for transitioning to a license to the virtual asset service providers which are already operating in accordance with the local law. For the countries where they are operating under special legislation, so they have some sort of license, even under AML, they, in my view, will be able to benefit of the extra 18 months. For the countries where you don't have that special license, it's a question mark.
Another one. We hope what you've heard today on the stage was useful. It was just a flavor. 30 minutes is not a lot. But as a conclusion to our discussion, the regulation that is coming will help from many perspectives, will validate businesses in this space. We already see the impact in the sense that discussions with regulators and banks are more relaxed now that there is a legal framework. So, yeah, all good from this perspective. Thank you, Andrei. Thank you, Raluca.
Thank
I would say they're not only relaxed, I think they also don't have enough institutional capacity to handle it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Jeff Wilser. I am a features writer at CoinDesk. I am joined today by Alex Adagio and Danilo Carlucci from Binance Labs and Morningstar Ventures. We are here to talk a topic that I think all of you guys are excited about. Very savvy crowd on data and data metrics investing. And I think this crowd gets it. And so we're going to nerd out a bit. It's going to be cool. So Danilo, start by telling us a bit about your funds and what you guys focus on.
Sure, awesome. Pleasure to be here, first of all. 1 year after xDay Paris. Nice to be in the home country of MultiversX. Beautiful place. My name is Danilo. I'm from Morningstar Ventures. We were amongst the first investors in the ecosystem several years ago, and it's great to have seen it develop. And to this day, we are very much supporting the ecosystem. We have about, I think, 7 or 8 portfolio companies just within MultiversX alone. And we support on various different facets. Of course, also cross-chain across other ecosystems as well. But good to be here, and thank you.
Alex.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a wonderful venue and even more wonderful event. it's great to be, to actually see how Multiverse has evolved since we did the investment back in 2019. MultiversX is a portfolio company, and we're very proud of the progress they've done. As to what we do, so I'm part of Binance Labs, and Binance Labs is the investment arm of Binance. We focus on early stage investments. We also run an incubator for even earlier stage investments. Our focus is pre-seed, seed, and Series A across all sorts of ecosystems. So we're quite chain agnostic as well as sector agnostic. So investing in anything from base layer infrastructure all the way to application layer, name it DeFi, gaming, tooling, anything in between, really.
So I don't think I have to convince this crowd of why data matters, but just for context, let's talk about why data metrics, when it comes to investing, why it's especially important right now in crypto winter in the bear market. My person's thought is that in a bull market, when this number go up, you can kind of roll out of bed and find projects. Talk a bit in this particular moment in time why data metrics are so critical for both of your approaches.
Sure. Shall I go first? Okay. Fine. So, I mean, data is a big word, right? It could mean a lot of things when we talk about startup investing. In crypto specific, I think, you have the data in terms of the traction of the project you're investing in. You have data when it comes to the token metrics of a specific project. And these two are very different concepts, right? If you look at market cycles, of course, in a bull market, data matters, but oftentimes investors take quicker decisions. When the market is tough, looking at the data in an analytical way can, of course, from an investment point, help you save money or not lose money. So ourselves, specifically at Morningstar, I would say that we've probably learned to look at some specific data that we find very interesting and that can maybe help us make the right decisions. However, as important as data is, there's a lot of human factors which we've realized are just as important as data. And that's like, what's the background of the team? Are they aware of their own data? So one question we ask regularly these days is projection on how they're going to spend the money that they raise, projections on how we're going to track the money that they raise, and also really like making sure that they are very cautious with the funds. And I think, of course, different microcycles require different ways of thinking, but data is always a connecting dot.
Alex.
Yeah, so if you contrast the way you approach investing during a bull market and a bear market, I think in a bear market, like, data offers you an edge to get more conviction and really helps you understand and underwrite an investment with more quality insights. Unfortunately, during bull markets, there's a lot of capital available out there. So as an investor, you're actually pressed for time. So you only have I remember 2 years ago when at the top of bull market, founders would come to me and say, hey, you have to send us a term sheet by the end of the week. And we only discussed first call we had on Monday. So it's actually quite tough to look at data holistically in a span of a couple of days. In a bear market, you have more time. You also have more data sources. You can actually aggregate across different data sources and create a picture that helps you understand different facets of the project. It's not necessarily that the project itself has that data, but within crypto and blockchain space, there is a lot of data, and there's a lot of stuff that you can get out of that data. So whether that's actually on-chain stuff or testnet data or how if it's like a consumer application, how users interact and behave within that consumer space, it helps a lot. Investors get a lot more comfort and conviction approaching an investment case analytically. And there's obviously the qualitative factor as well. For sure, one of the most, if not the most important investment criteria for us is the team and the background and the experience, the execution capability, and how they think about getting to whatever roadmap or end of the roadmap and the overall vision, how they're going to get there, that's very important. You cannot get that as much from data. You get that from actually talking to the team as much. So there's a balance.
Yeah, and if I may add, I think one benefit of the bear market for us investors is that founders are putting more effort in having data available. So when the market is hot and it's easy to raise money, people just put a pitch deck together in 2 weeks and raise cash. So I feel like oftentimes in bear market is when you see better teams and better products putting effort in providing the data that's actually needed to make an informed decision.
I'd love to now shift from abstract to hyper concrete. And if you'll indulge me, let's nerd out for a moment. And Alex, start with you. Tell me some of your favorite, such a nerdy question, what's your favorite data metric? But really, like your favorite data metrics. And then here's where we'll get granular. Like paint a picture of how you actually use that. Do you have a spreadsheet with like 2,000 rows? Do you have like, are you just crunching numbers in that database? Like, give us a sense of beyond kind of the high level, yes, important metric. What are you deciling and saying, okay, here's like 100 projects and we decile them by this one metric, right? Or kind of paint a picture of how you use this data. But let's start with what are some of your favorite and like essential data metrics when evaluating a project or investment? And maybe what are a couple of like overlooked and underappreciated metrics?
Yeah, so I think it's important to put a disclaimer out there. So this is for projects that actually produce data, right? Perhaps they've launched for some time or just managed to get some data off like a testnet version of their product. Regardless, like my favorite data point is just if we only resume to one, that would be an indication of the user base. So for example, daily active users. And this is something you can actually track on chain very easily because each wallet is unique. So then you can go and say how many unique wallets are there that interact with this smart contract or this set of smart contracts on a daily basis. So then you can look and actually even create like a cohort analysis of wallets that came in, say, at the beginning of the month, how many times did they interact over the span of this month or quarter? How many dropped off and never came back to interact with this project? And that number, that DAU or weekly active user or monthly, whatever aggregate time span you use, is very indicative of the repeat use of it and how much users love coming back to it, right? So that's something that we like tracking closely. Regards to your second question, like what's probably underlooked or perhaps like sometimes overused as well. I think in DeFi, and that's the space that I spend a lot of time, I think there's an over-focus on TVL. So TVL gives you a good indication of sort of the health of the project, how much value is locked up in it. However, the TVL alone doesn't tell you much. It just tells you there is some money there that is potentially parked. But if the business model of that particular project actually is relying on churning that capital around and how much it needs to kind of turn around and turn over, without knowing that, you won't know the health of the revenue generation, which is potentially transaction-based. I'm referring here basically to DEXs. Yep. Right? TVL for DEX is a good indicator, but on its own is not very good.
So, sorry, but so I'm curious, can you give just maybe for one data point, maybe users, as you mentioned that's essential, how do you inject that into your analysis? Is it a litmus test? It must have a score of X, or do you, when you're considering an array of projects, are you ranking by this and then looking at top 20%? Say a little more about how you kind of create a framework that leverages that data point.
Yeah, certainly. So I think one of the great things about our job is that we can actually come up with this type of frameworks as we go along. So there's no book like, in traditional finance, how you value companies. And you go and open the page and there's like DCF analysis, right? Or comparable trades or like EV multiples and so on. Like in crypto, this is just coming along. And as part
We're all learning as we go, right? This is all
right.
Yeah.
We're creating that framework. So I think to answer your question, the way we're thinking is obviously like if there is multiple projects within the same space or subsector, it helps understand and inform get some insights based on comparable analysis. So yes, we look at different projects. We potentially rank them if we have decent amount of data and look which one ranks higher, lower, and not just that, but also understand why. So actually asking the question, why does this project has higher TVL but might have like lower valuation? If you can get to the bottom and get a proper answer to that, it actually tells you a lot.
Danilo.
Very interesting answer. So on my side, I think partly the sleeping patterns of the founders are pretty important. Like especially in crypto, you don't sleep very much if you're building something. So dedication is what I would call this pattern. Of course, it's not numeric; it's subjective. But on a numbers side, I feel like it very much depends on which field the actual project is acting. Like if we're talking of a of a nodes operator versus a game, versus a layer 1 or layer 2, you're talking very much different data points that matter in that case. But I think on our side, I mean, we've noticed that some of our best investments actually came from that gut feeling you have about the team. And I would still say that us as a fund, we're pretty good at picking the right people. Data is important, but it also very much depends on a lot of different factors. And I think while data is important in investments, it's much more complex because you might have a great project that has, great DAOs or MAOs or, good traction, but it's just maybe not building on the ecosystem you're interested in. Or it's competing with another portfolio company that you've invested in 3 months before. So I think it's much more complex than just data. Like, let's be honest, investments, sometimes there's also a luck factor involved, right? So I think it's a complex answer.
How do you guys sniff out the bull, the BS, both in data and more generally? I can only imagine you guys have so much coming across your desk every day, right? And we all know in this space, there's just a ton of just, whether it's outright scams or it's people with good intentions that are just like, it's vaporware, there's nothing there. What do you do to vet the data you see? To see if someone says, we have 20 billion, well, 20 billion, probably not accurate, but we have a ton of users or we have X much traffic or whatever. What do you do to vet that? And more generally, how do you separate the signal from the noise in this sea of confusion and like tough to figure out kind of what's legit and what's not?
Yes, so I'd like to point out that what Danilo mentioned about the team. Straight off the bat, we actually try to understand the quality of the team and also the trustworthiness of the team. So even if they come up with the best data, but there's something off about the team, or for example, if they were involved with some other previous projects that are not as trustworthy, or they ended up being some scams and so on, that's a complete no-go for us, obviously. So the trustworthiness of the team and the way we perceive them and the way we build that relationship and that trust from day one is very important. Only then we can actually put some weight and give some credit to the data that we can use for our investment decisions. Like data alone is not sufficient. And you pointed out something in your question, is that how do you actually vet the data that it's accurate? Even in the blockchain space, you can actually fake data or at least like manipulate in a way that looks good. You can create fake wallets, fake accounts, and try to pump up the user metrics. You have all sorts of Sybil attacks when it comes to the different, that usually happens in the airdrops, but also when you want actually to create a picture around the project that's doing better than it actually is. So the way we're looking at that is actually trying to get multiple sources of data that talk to each other. So if there's something off and, for example, they have massive user base, but the transaction volume is not there, or they have lots of transaction volume, but the opposite, like they only have like 3 users. And that's just an example, but like if you stack them one on top of the other, at some point, if the data is not legitimate or it's fake, like the whole thing collapses. So you can actually see the narrative break down very quickly if, because you cannot fake reality. So, or organic user interaction with a protocol. That's very hard to do and actually take care of everything. So it's just a matter of digging deeper. And coming back to your question about the bear market, you have that time in the bear market to do that analysis, to have multiple conversations with the team, to do reference checks, and understand, just getting a very holistic picture about the team behind the project and the data.
Danilo, your hacks for sniffing out the bull.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I would say we get about 2 to 5 or 2 to 4 projects a day approaching us.
And that's just mine alone.
So I can just imagine these guys probably get 10 times more, right? So my let's say challenge to founders would be, you know, if your idea is good enough, like whoever you're trying to approach, eventually they will hear it, right? In the sense that we at Morningstar we try not to respond to DMs, because a DM on Telegram is probably like a DM on Instagram. There's something cheeky about it, right? So essentially, if it's a good project, what we expect the team to do is to find a way to get a warm introduction. And I would say, I don't think we've ever done any investment that did not come from a warm introduction. And when I say warm introduction, it doesn't just mean, you know, maybe it could be someone we meet at a conference. Like I met Benjamin actually at DEF CON, at an Ethereum conference, during the Algorand meetup, right? So I'm saying you can also meet someone in person, and then, you know, that can be a great way to meet an investment opportunity. So what I would say to projects is, whoever you're trying to approach, don't just go for a cold email, don't just go for a message on Telegram. Try to get someone who already has a relationship with the person you're trying to approach. Ask for a warm introduction, because as soon as there's someone in between, that person is putting their work, their trust, you know, on behalf of you to make that introduction. And yeah, I think there is definitely, if I look at the last 2-3 years, there's been, you know, a handful of people whom, whenever they introduce us someone, we pay attention. And we always try to surround ourselves with people that are smarter than us, that are wealthier than us. And I think that's a great way to keep growing, both as an investor, but also the same way for founders who are on stage.
You know, you just created a mob for yourself, right? As you leave a stage, half this room is going to converge. So what are this space obviously moves very, very fast, right? 2 months is like 2 years. Trends change so fast. How do you guys keep up with, I mean, a key part of investing is having your ear to the ground, right? I mean, to your point, you get warm intros, you learn people, you meet people, but more generally, how do you stay on top of things? How do you try and suss out, okay, this is an interesting sub-trend no one's talking about. What are your, like, I mean, literally, are you spending like 3 hours a day on Discord, Twitter? What kind of formats and channels do you use? How do you guys try and stay kind of abreast of what's interesting?
Yeah, so you mentioned a couple there. I spend quite a bit of time on Twitter and Discord. You can actually find some of the trends quite early on just looking at those two. People, especially like if you follow people within a very niche sector, for example in DeFi, where I spend a lot of my time, I can see things popping up, you know, like a project that has like 500, like less than 1,000 followers. You can see it within like a couple of weeks. It goes to like a few thousand, and then
have you ever actually invested? Have you had a project like from Twitter? You're like,
yes,
and
yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Like the moment I find something interesting about the project, I try to get in contact. And the best projects that I found are the ones that you cannot message. So like I have to do the reverse thing, actually trying to find the founders through someone that I know.
They're playing hard to get, right?
Yeah, they are, because, and those are, I think, some of the best ones, because they're builders. And they're not just going around, hey, let me raise off the latest hype. They're actually building something, and then they're creating the hype. So yes, we did invest of those kind of intros. I mean, they're better like outreach. So yeah, it's really helpful to actually stay on top like that. Now, you obviously have more sort of traditional means by reading research, trying to understand, like come up with some narratives yourself, and trying to understand what sort of themes might come up, and then you actually monitor those very closely. But I think ultimately it's a combination of all of those things together.
When you say research, can you get even a little more specific? Like what types of research? Are you reading white papers? What are you doing exactly to kind of like dig deep?
Ideally, like something that has a lot of technical weight in it. So people might, write some white papers about a specific, implementation of things, and most of the times they actually go and build it. So then there could be an investable opportunity there, right? It's that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about research that is very, macro and talks about very high-level stuff. That is kind of, bedtime reading, I guess.
Danilo, how about you? How do you stay in touch?
Yeah, so two things. So one, I think you mentioned a fair point, because like actually the one metric we haven't talked about is the social metric. And I think Twitter, Discord, Telegram, whatever field you may be in, if you have traction on those social metrics, you're doing something right. And actually, we have a common investment in our portfolio called Fusionist, and I think they have one of the largest Twitter and on-chain metrics and social metrics we've ever seen. And so I think we've actually told other portfolio companies to look at what that project did in order to kind of replicate like actual, traction. Now, in terms of, how we try to stay on top of our game and try to make the right investments and the right decisions, it's very, I would say, a bit different than how you guys do it, in the sense, first of all, you're Binance, you're the largest exchange in the world. We're a privately held fund of 25 team members under the age of 40. So we are very much, let's say, on the ground, like hyper networking, and we're actually building a lot of stuff. So on our side, we really try to work with projects from the ground up. And oftentimes, actually, our best introductions come from other team members. So it happened a lot of times where previous investment portfolios were happy with the work we've provided to them, and then they have actually introduced us to people that they know in their network. So I think the same way you have to differentiate yourself as a builder, you have to differentiate yourself as a VC. And I mean, we know our place, right? Morningstar Ventures, we're not as wealthy as Binance, so we have to kind of build our value in a different way. And so our way of how we build our value is we're very active with the people we support. And maybe the last 2 years we were a bit too aggressive with our investments, so now we're being a bit more cautious, but we're very much taking our time to support projects from A to Z.
Two-part question for you both. Without kind of spilling your secret sauce, what would you say, and this is the part in the talk everyone starts really taking notes, what would you say are some investment opportunities or themes, sectors you think not enough people are talking about? You're like, this is interesting. Why is it not being talked about more? And second part, where does the metaverse fit in all of this? Obviously, last year, metaverse. This year, less so. But I'm guessing there are some interesting opportunities for those who know where to look. So how do you guys think about underlooked investment areas? And then metaverse, where does that kind of fit into play? Danilo.
Yeah, so I think we've done investments in all sorts of facets, right? From Metaverse to NFT to layer 1, layer 2 to gaming to DeFi. So I think we've tried to kind of understand each of the different spheres that exist in crypto, and I think it's very hard to actually have a full grasp of all of them because things move so fast. So I wouldn't consider ourselves specific experts in any of these, but we're good generalists in all, right? And so if I look forward, and there's two fields that I'm, let's say, passionate about. One is because I believe that that's what's going to bring further adoption. The other is because I believe it's something I'm personally passionate about. The latter is education. I think that there is, when I say education, I even mean schooling. I think there is a way we can actually, democratize education via the blockchain in some capacity. And we've made an investment in that direction already. On the other side, when it comes to what I do think is hot right now, it's definitely infrastructure, because we are not yet where we want to be with the ecosystem in general and blockchain. So infrastructure needs to be further capitalized in order to make things safer, faster, more reliable, and to really have, actual use cases on top of the blockchain. But in terms of what I believe will be strong in the future, for sure, I think it's hard to not mention AI. I think AI is certainly going to be, a very important topic. And I was just discussing with, a few people, including Alex outside before, that, we see like AI is out there. Eventually, a lot of the tasks and the jobs and the things that are being executed by humans now are going to be focused and executed by AIs. And somehow, we will live in a world where AIs are going to have to pay each other. And those AIs are going to have to pay each other in crypto. So it might take a longer time.
I love this use case, by the way. I think it's very cool.
It's going to take a while.
Yeah. Alex, how about you? Overlooked trends, overlooked opportunities, and then how are you thinking of metaverse investing these days?
Yeah, certainly. So there's a couple of things that I think are quite interesting to follow recently. One of them, might sound mundane, but like the Bitcoin space has had some sort of a renaissance recently this year, starting with ordinals, BRC20, then you have Taproot, then there's been some interesting developments in that space which we're monitoring closely and trying to understand where that is going. Historically, Bitcoin has been moving somewhat slower just because of the way the whole ecosystem came about, very conservative, trying to actually work on upgrades very slowly, take security, which is very important, as the number one priority, and only then kind of open up to this new, SegWit happened a while ago. Then we had the Taproot upgrade. Again, took some time, and I think slowly there's more developers and they're trying to build some utility around it, which I think is quite interesting because, it's half of the entire market. Now, going back to more closer to stuff that is happening, for example, in DeFi, right? So I think DeFi has a lot of interesting opportunities that are just coming about as we're seeing more institutional adoption. Now, there's like the regulatory angle, which I'll leave aside for a second, but from a tax standpoint, I think there's a need for infrastructure that is actually friendly to institutionals. Like institutions can't go and use like MetaMask or those kind of walls. They need something a bit more robust that actually ticks all the box in terms of how they see how they are operating and what sort of even now, like if you take an example, like multi-party signature, like multi-sig, right? If you try to use multi-sig like wallets right now, I'd be surprised if like a quarter of the people will raise their hands to say that they really love the experience, like they absolutely love it, right? No one will say that. Very, very few people will. So we need to get to a spot where we can use that kind of complex infrastructure in a way that actually is human-friendly. So just to summarize, there's infrastructure tooling that substantially increase the UI and UX for users.
And Alex, last question for you real quick. Metaverse, where do you see opportunities in metaverse investing?
Yeah, so if we place Metaverse into wider context, I think overall there's been a really high interest, which hasn't actually met with the reality of delivering that. And I think a lot of capital got burned that way because kind of went into the wrong direction. Ultimately, it comes down to having a great team that is building for the right users. And if you couple those together, I think we'll see some interesting metaverse projects that will actually be useful, will have utility, and they'll be actually fun to play or be part of.
Awesome. We are out of time. That was great. Thanks, guys, so much, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you all.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lucas, the head of X Exchange, and I'm super happy to host this panel about bridging the gap between DeFi and traditional finance. We are very fortunate today because we are going to discuss with 3 DeFi and traditional finance experts here. Our first guest is the co-founder of Osmosis, the leading decentralized exchange of the Cosmos ecosystem, that has reached a record high of $2 billion of liquidity. He is also a key contributor to the Cosmos SDK. Please welcome Sunny Agarwal. Our second guest is the founder of Stake Capital Group, an investment fund run by DeFi pioneers that has invested in more than 40 DeFi projects, among them Curve Finance, Lido Finance, 1inch, and many more. He is also the creator of Rect, the news journal of reference in the crypto space. Please welcome Julien Bouteloup. And our third guest is the founder and CEO of Meria, a multi-chain crypto assets investment platform that proposes custodial and non-custodial investment solution and that manages more than 200 million euros of assets. He is also the creator of the YouTube channel Asher, the most known cryptocurrency YouTube channel in France. Please welcome Owen Simona. Thank you very much, guys, for being here. It's really a pleasure to have you here. So, I will start maybe by saying how great DeFi is, because I think that all 4 here, and probably many of you here, are true believers in DeFi. And we surely love the powerfulness of DeFi, the decentralization of DeFi, and the permissionless aspect of DeFi. So I'm going to go fast forward on this topic because I know we all agree on these aspects. The thing I would like to discuss is more of the gap between DeFi and traditional finance. And my first question for you guys will be, on which fronts do you think traditional finance is ahead of DeFi? Or said differently, on which fronts do you think DeFi needs to catch up? Sunny, would you express yourself first?
Sure. So I was on a panel like an hour and a half ago, so I might come off a little bit repetitive, so sorry about that. But no, I think the 2 big things, one is definitely on the user experience. I think that like onboarding into DeFi is just like such a painful process. 2 weeks ago, just for some user experience testing, I asked one of my friends, he's a software engineer at Robinhood, so like technical, fintech. I gave him a job. I told him, buy $10 of Maker on Uniswap. And I'm like, figure out how to do it. It took him over an hour to figure out how to do it. And it's like, this is not an experience, like the onboarding experience that makes sense, right? So I think we have a long way to go in that onboarding, and that's one. And then the other, I think, is the privacy side. The privacy side, where today, if you're trading on any decentralized exchange, right, you're basically you have all this MEV that's happening because the mempools are public. You have the chain. Everyone's leaking their trading strategies. Like no sophisticated trader is gonna be okay with that, right? They don't want to see that. You have like Dune analytics, and some people see that's a good thing, but it's like really traders are like, no, I'm not. I'm like giving away my trading strategies when everyone can track me like that. So I think we need to fix the privacy as well.
Okay, thanks. Julien, I know that you invest in many projects regarding this simplicity and user experience and privacy. Is it something you look into?
Well, I think user experience, it's of course it's an existing problem, but for me the biggest problem is the liquidity. In traditional finance, we have by multiple order of magnitude the liquidity that you can find in DeFi. And also, when we say like user experience, most of the project that you see in the space, I would say more than 98% of the project, they don't actually focus on the product. They focus on the fact that they are using crypto or blockchain. But at the end of the day, the user, they don't really care if you're using blockchain or crypto. What they care is that is the product that you are trying to sell to them, solving a real problem to them. And that's a major issue. And I would say that on the scale to 0 to 1, on every different angles that DeFi, traditional finance, all finance can be built on, I would say traditional finance still winning the race in all those different angles, except maybe the decentralization and the accessibility. But decentralization today is still very centralized, and accessibility, of course, DeFi is more accessible for most of the people in the world than traditional finance. You can access exotic and very complex products that in traditional finance will require to be KYC, AML, or to have a sufficient understanding of the concept in order to use them. So it's more difficult.
Okay, and Owen?
Yeah, I think you have 2 points of view when you're thinking about accessibility. Because yes, it's accessible because decentralized finance is permissionless. Everybody can access to the decentralized finance, but it's not accessible because it's too complex. Today, the problem of DeFi, it's also a problem of liquidity, as Julian said, because you need to reach a critical mass adoption to work with a very important protocol of decentralized finance. And for that, you need to have people educate to become a liquidity provider. You have to explain what is a liquidity providing token. You have to explain what is an impermanent loss when you have different volatile token inside. You have to explain how you can use it, how you can compound it in another kind of protocol. And basically, you also have to understand every basic skills of cryptocurrency, holding your private key, having access to a decentralized custodian wallet, etc., etc. And everybody is not a financial investor. Everybody is not able and prepared to understand this different kind of concept. So I think it's very important, but sometimes I'm just thinking that we can't just compare decentralized finance and centralized finance because the proposition of value is not exactly the same. And by definition, decentralized finance, it's different kind of financial product. Today we have in mind DEX, we have in mind loan, insurance, but it's a base product of finance. And I think people like Julian or Sunny are building the next step of centralized finance product and not only these basic needs. So the comparison between the development of both finance and decentralized finance are complex because it's not only a question of volume. And basically, if you need some tool of decentralized finance because you have no choice, because you don't have a bank account, because you don't have access to loan, at this moment, yes, you will go through this different complexity barrier because you don't have the choice. You understand what is a private key, and you will find a solution to become a liquidity provider.
Okay, so you are saying that basically right now I'm kind of, the people that go through it are forced and they need to have the patience to go through, and this is a big difference.
Yeah, and sometimes decentralized tools are just an evolution of another kind of tools that can find the centralized finance, and sometimes it's a real revolution because glad to the decentralized finance, you have no access to this solution.
Okay, and what is your perspective on this? Like, do you think that on these points, for example, DeFi will catch up with traditional finance, or you think that fundamentally it will stay behind? Julien, maybe first.
Well, I truly believe for the success of DeFi is not DeFi to replace traditional finance, but it's traditional finance to use, adopt, and solve existing problems using the technology of whatever we have built in decentralized finance. So securitization of assets, accessibility, and all those type of different problems that we have solved in decentralized finance are super useful in traditional finance, and they should be used there. So people saying decentralized finance will replace traditional finance, I don't really believe so, because traditional finance is an existing system, it's big, it's robust, and it does a lot of different mistakes. But in terms of order of magnitude, it's by far way bigger. So for us, in order to continue existing and making progress and shipping this technology will need to be used by some of the biggest players in the world. There is no other way. So banks will still be there, but instead of using centralized order books, they will use blockchain. But at the end of the day, if you want this technology to be successful, people will never realize that they're using crypto or blockchain. It's the same as today. When you're using internet, you go surfing the web, you use HTTP, but you don't say, oh, I've built this project, it's using HTTP. No, in Web 2, you don't say that. You focus on the product. It's the same when you send SMS. You don't say, oh, I'm using this very nice software that is based on SMTP. You never mention the protocols. So this is what we're moving into. There's multiple different phases because we, at the moment, building the technology. But this technology will be useful if it's used and powering some of the biggest players in the ecosystem today.
So basically you are saying that we should really focus on the use case, like what the value proposition we are giving, and blockchain is just a tool, and probably there is no debate between traditional finance and decentralized finance. There is debate about finance, and services will propose, and companies will figure out what are the best tools to use, right? Okay.
At the end of the day, DeFi and CeFi is the same.
Okay.
They all CeFi, they all finance. It's just a matter of which tool you're using to achieve the mission. So if the mission is to have something that is fully decentralized and accessible to most of the people, then of course products from DeFi are mostly useful. But sometimes you need full custody, you need full centralization of power because certain aspect of the product is what it is. So yeah.
Okay, I've seen you approving a lot. Anything to add on this topic, or you approve very much with what Julian said?
No, I think I have.
Okay, great. One thing that struck me in traditional finance is how inexistent governance votes are. For example, Apple or Google or Amazon, they never do governance votes. But in DeFi, governance votes are frequent. I won't say that every project do it, but it's very frequent in the DeFi space. And my question is, why do you think that governance votes are more prevalent in DeFi than in traditional finance? And Sunny, you come from the Cosmos ecosystem, which takes governance very seriously. So I would be very curious to hear your thought about this.
Yeah, one of the reasons I got into blockchains in the first place was I was like studying computer science and political economy, and I was like really fascinated with the, blockchains as being places where you can quickly experiment with like political economic systems. I think that like typically like creating new governance structures is a very slow process, and but with smart contracts you can just like run these experiments both on like economic side. We tried different types of stable coins. We tried different types of we tried different types of stable coins. Some of them collapse, some of them work. We learn a lot about economics, but then I think on like governance we want to try different things, and we're learning a lot about them. I'm like really excited about like what Maker is doing with Endgame and like kind of like using prediction markets for governance. I think, and I hope that Cosmos, we can act like a platform for this sort of experimentation. In the Cosmos Hub Genesis file, just as in Bitcoin's Genesis file, there was the headlines from the Times that day. It was Chancellor on brink of second bailout of banks. In the Genesis file of the Cosmos Hub, there's the same headline from the Times that day of the Cosmos Hub launch, which is Brexit vote must be put on pause, MPs warn May. And it's like, for me, that was always significant because it's like, okay, I saw Bitcoin as this like revolution in finance, and I see Cosmos as this like revolution in like governance experimentation. You can have your own blockchain that has governance at the center of it, and you can like experiment with what you want to do with that. And so, you know, I think one of the value propositions of Atom, if I had to give a one line, is it is the most decentralized governance token in all of crypto. I don't think there's any other governance token that comes close. Bitcoin and ETH are probably more decentralized, but they're not governance tokens. And I think there's a lot of value in like building a capital asset that has governance at the core. You know, Bitcoin and ETH have their own monetary policies that they follow, which I think are very interesting. Bitcoin is digital gold. I think ETH is the petrodollar, but I think Atom has this like ability to become the like decentralized central bank, use governance to do things like active monetary policy, open market operations, like liquidity inject, like protocol-owned liquidity, all these sorts of things. So I think the direction of like governance experimentation is one that is for me, the point of crypto.
Okay, thanks. Julien,
I would say, like you said something that Apple or Facebook and those big guys are never going to governance. It's actually not true. They always go on governance, but it's governance that you never see. And that's the difference in DeFi. We have built what we call first accessibility to decision makers, policy makers, because this is what governance is. And we see and we can participate in those decisions on a public channel. But in traditional finance, you have VCs, you have shareholders, you have founders, you have existing members, and all type of directors and etc. And those guys, they make decisions. The fact that they raise the shares or print more shares, it doesn't come out from someone waking up in the morning and pushing a button. It goes through spreadsheet and different type of data. For example, today was announced that Netflix is increasing the share value because they have been having some good P&L, whatever. So yeah, it's a lot of governance, but you never see those governance. It's hidden by a group of people that only themselves have access to those type of different features. What's unique and revolutionary in this space is that for the first time, we have built something that anyone can participate. Anyone can wake up in the morning and say, okay, I will build a landing page that will attract delegates, voting power, and the next day I can have 10% decision maker in one of the biggest protocol in a space. It's truly unique. But then by decentralizing and making this powerful feature, because lobbying is way more powerful than money, then you also end up, that's what we say, like with power comes consequences. So this is where then you end up with chaos and a lot of different shit show and different things happening in DeFi that we mostly cover in Rect News come from the governance space. Because we need to educate and we need to learn how to play with those very powerful tools. I think we made one of the biggest mistakes in this ecosystem. That was like 5 or 6, 7 years ago. The beginning with Cosmos, Tezos, Ethereum, and multi-chain and different things like that. That we believe we understood the concept of governance. But civilizations, centuries over centuries, millennium over millenniums, took them ages to understand governance. And we thought that in a time frame of 5 or 10 years, we masterized governance. But then today, guess who? Or give me a name of someone mentioning that he's building a DAO. No one is mentioning that they're building a DAO. Completely disappeared this concept. Now this DAO is under the hood, powering the technology, but no one actually mentioned the concept. So it's a tough concept, it's difficult, we're learning about them. But yeah, governance exists in traditional finance. We don't have access to it. In DeFi, we have full transparency, but then came consequences.
Okay, so, yeah, Owen, you wanted to answer?
Yeah, and I really think it's important to continue to increment and to try these different kind of model. And I also think sometimes we have biggest problem in decentralized finance governance than in centralized finance. Because as Julian said, the governance exists in this biggest company, and it's a very important key point. And the fact that you can take a decision very fastly, it's very important in your strategy. The problem of big company, it's the company is leaving an horizontal model to a vertical model. And at this moment, you can lose, because of your process, you can lose your agility. The problem sometimes of decentralized finance is the fact that every user is not able to have a good idea and a good point of view in a technical proposition. Sometimes technical, sometimes financial, but everybody is not with the right skills to take this decision. And that is the first point. And the second one is basically also in decentralized finance, you can buy this right to vote. And basically, when you are the little fish of the room, you have to play the music of the whale. That's why in decentralized finance or not, you can have a re-centralization of the governance and you can see the same model and the same problem of centralized governance sometimes. That's why I think it's also important to try different kind of decentralized model. And one day I hope find the best, typical model efficient for decentralization.
Okay, very interesting. So basically, we have more tooling to do governance, but figuring out the correct way of governing is still something to work on, if I understand correctly, right? Very interesting. Another big difference between DeFi and traditional finance is regulation. That's a point we have to discuss here. DeFi is way less regulated than traditional finance right now. Do you think DeFi should be more regulated, should be as regulated as traditional finance? Owen, I know that Maria worked hard to follow the French regulation. What is your opinion on this subject?
It's impossible to have a perfect answer to this question because that will depend on how the regulation will be applied. But for totally decentralized point of view, it's always too much. And for the actual regulator and banks, it's always the Far West in the cryptocurrency world. So it's complex to answer. I think we have to find some average solution, average answer to this kind of this problem. But for the moment, for the DeFi, it's really early. For example, the European regulation, MiCA, coming at the end of 2024 in December, is not talking about DeFi for the moment. That will be about MiCA 2. And for the moment, we have not the detail about DeFi, and we have not the detail about when MiCA 2 will be applied. And I think it's a good thing, because we need of this period, to try and to continue to increment and to discover different ways to use DeFi to create beautiful, useful tools before creating the framework and to say what is legal or not. But sometimes in different countries, we're still starting to have some discussion about making a complete KYC about every and behind every single public key. And I think that is dangerous because it's more than a regulation. It's a way to keep the control about this decentralized world. And I think that will be the limit of the regulation of the DeFi.
What do you think are, because in traditional finance there is a KYC for each user, but it doesn't seem to be an issue. Why in DeFi?
It's complex because you need to have some KYC sometimes to understand who is behind the financial flux. It's important in case of money laundering, financement of terrorism. It's important, but for 99% of people, they are not using blockchain for this kind of thing. And basically at this moment, blockchain is a powerful tool of traceability. We can now, who are behind the address, we can understand everything about financial habits, financial preference, and that is a very thin and very accurate information about your person. And I think that is complex because we will have to find a solution for the regulation in DeFi, but that will be a tricky question because no perfect solution exists. It's always the same thing. A regulator having your identity and not abusing about it, it's a cool thing. But basically, the people getting the power want to use it at one moment.
I think this was the case a couple years ago, but this year in 2023, now with concepts such as zero knowledge proof, I think we pretty much killed the game in that aspect. So now it's more about us building tools that will use zero knowledge proof identity mechanism where you can use a wallet that is KYC AML, but you don't actually give away your identity or personal information, and you can use DeFi. Because at the moment, the way DeFi is built is the way we understand how finance works or how society is built on. We have limited understanding of those concepts for security-wise, for regulation-wise, for microeconomy, micro and microeconomy. So I think it's our job to build a technology that will satisfy guidelines and regulatory framework. Some people don't wake up in the morning just for the sake of screwing everyone else, or just for, oh, I will just crash this because why not, you know? There's reasons behind. Of course, on our side as builders, we always interpret them as bad because they go against our productivity, scalability, and whatever. And it's always limitation to the amount of things we can do. But there's a reason why some people on the other side build those things to protect and also sometimes to really be annoying, but this is what it is. But on our side, we have the technology, and if we are not able to answer those different problems with the technologies, then it means we don't control the technology. We don't have a good understanding of the thing we can build out of this powerful technology. But if we give the tool to those guys, and also a lot of education, because sometimes we have the tool, but they don't necessarily understand the tool that we have built. But zero knowledge proof, secure enclave, account abstraction, being able to give authority for a third party to be able to either not control but manage your funds in a security, so for retail don't lose money. All those different concepts, especially this year or last year, we made a massive step towards success, bringing DeFi in TradFi, or actually making sure the things that we're building are safe for the people. Because if you look at Rect, many people lost money in DeFi, but on the scale of TradFi, they lose more money. But this is not the game here. It's not trying to fight who's losing the most money, you know. But I'm sure we have tools, sufficient tools today. We made like a huge step towards technology, understanding of mathematics, in order to bring those tools in the game to make them happy. Not happy, but to actually compliant with society.
So you have a positive view on regulation, and I guess what you were saying, Owen, is that right now, if we add KYCs, and because there is no privacy, might be very dangerous, but with new technology, for example, zero knowledge proof, we can have this privacy that also allows to have a KYC and so the regulation, right? I mean,
of course, like KYC in full public space, this is very bad. You don't want to have your credit score, you did something, you didn't pay your rent, and then the next day you cannot take public transportation or whatever. This is crazy. So, yeah, KYC AML in public spaces, no, because this is Big Brother and everyone knows what you're doing. But if you add this technology, zero knowledge proof, then yes, it's nice.
Very interesting. And regarding governance, Sunny, because also I guess KYC, if you want to have on-chain governance, is pretty bad. It's like you vote for your president, but your name is public, I mean, I guess. And is it a problematic you have also thought about in regard of governance? The question, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think privacy is very important when it comes to the governance, right? You don't want everyone to be able to see who's making what votes. It like leads to a lot of like social pressure and stuff that I think is like unhealthy and like doesn't lead to like good governance decisions, right? You let the mob control happens, right? And we've seen this happen in Cosmos actually before, where, you know, the mob just takes over, and anyone who votes against the mob, it's like they get socially shamed, right? And it's like, I think having that private voting is very important for that. And then I think there's also actually very interesting stuff in the other direction of like where the role of governance in privacy. So like one of the things that we're like exploring right now is like having like private transactions on Osmosis, but giving the ability for governance of the chain to choose to decrypt specific flows, right? If North Korea put $4 billion through, I think governance of the chain would probably want to help decrypt that, right? And even now, even the threat that the governance can decrypt things that governance treats as moral hazards will probably prevent people using it in those ways.
Okay, you won't know.
Because in the concept of zero knowledge proof and using anonymous addresses, but then tax force authority, if they find something strange about some transaction, they can challenge this address to reveal who's behind this activity and to reveal what's behind those different transactions, but in very isolated manner. So meaning that they can actually challenge anyone, but only if you have a legal authority or judiciary authority that they've been making some investigation and they believe there's something strange going on. So we cannot go outside of the legal framework. I mean, the criminal framework. This is the whole concept. You can be anonymous. I mean, anonymous like in a zero knowledge proof aspect, but always be challenged by authority to prove what type of transaction you've been doing if they believe something strange happened.
The network and the users can refuse the authority demand
well,
to
if someone
challenge
refused,
this or not?
Someone refused to give like proof that this type of activity is not wrong in a very isolated manner, then it means it's wrong.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys. It was extremely insightful conversation, and it was an honor to have you here. And thank you very much to all of you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
One, two, 1, 2. I see technology is with us on our side tonight. I'm really, really surprised to see so many of you still here at 5:30 talking about the subject, the exciting subject of staking, which many of us understand as something that we just leave our coins in a smart contract and we forget about them, right? As a passive thing, as a passive income. Well, we are here to talk about this subject of staking and demystify the myth that staking is something passive. I'm pleased to have with us here Alina from xDay. She's been in the space for 3 years now, and she's very active in the MultiversX ecosystem. Thank you, Alina. We have also Kwon with us from Forball. I've known Kwon for quite some time, maybe 6 years, with Battle of Stakes, something like that, or
Game of Stakes.
Game of Stakes, yeah. Battle of Stakes was on MultiversX. We share the passion of playing the guitar, and he's also a Barcelona fan. So, go Barca.
Barca.
And not lastly, we have Laszlo from Kiln. He's a serial entrepreneur. He founded a company in 2015, tracking talent for tech, and then he moved into blockchain. And now he runs a company that focuses on enterprise-grade, corporate-level staking. So We have a nice panel here with us.
Hi, guys.
Hello, hello.
I just said a few words about each of them, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So, Alina, please go ahead.
Thank you, Eddie. Hello, everyone. Happy to be here today with you all. So I'm Alina, and I'm head of staking at Stake, and I'm the one who is in charge of both institutional and retail staking. And one of the directions that I'm managing is the connection between the community and between our staking provider in order to stay informed, in order to respond to all the requests we receive from our community. So our credo is to be useful, and I'm trying to fulfill our mission here. Thank you.
Nice, thank you. Kwon.
Hello, I'm Kwon. I'm the co-founder of Phobal Group, and then we run a validator on MultiversX, along with some other networks. And we are also a Web3 infrastructure provider, so we also provide validator white labeling services and RPC services. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Laszlo, the co-founder and CEO of Kiln. We are an on-chain platform for crypto platforms, and we focus on offering staking, liquid staking, and other kind of yields on-chain, non-custodial to exchanges, wallets, and custodian. Very nice to meet you guys.
Okay, thank you. So maybe we start by defining some concepts, right? Staking. What is staking exactly? And what is the importance of staking? So let's go in line.
Yeah, so probably, I suppose that everyone in this auditorium knows what's the basics of staking, how the process of staking looks like, but it is important to outline that staking is actually the core element of every blockchain that operates on the proof-of-stake consensus mechanism. And it is important for users and for our audience to understand that due to the technology revolution that we have, so we have the proof of stake, we have proof of work, proof of stake, and now we have the delegated proof of stake, where all the users can partake in this very process. And the mission of the staking, of course, it is validation, the transaction, creating new blocks, and getting something like rewarded for your contribution for your work. However, we also have to remember that the rewards, it's not only the thing that we get in assets. It is, we have to explore other options. We have to understand that as this is the core element of the blockchain, we need to contribute to it. We need to be a part of it so that we could see our ecosystem grow and flourish and develop further. Because if we are centered only on the rewards and some kind of liquidity here, this is kind of a wrong way for the development for the ecosystem, because we're here not only for the yield. I hope for this, because we are here trying to develop a new technology, to develop a new industry, because Web3 is kind of but it is very young industry, and we have to support it and try to onboard new people to the field. Of course, noteworthy to mention that staking is, especially during this market condition, is one of the safest way to lay down and wait for the next cycle to accumulate potential for the next bull run, so that you can leverage the potential you accumulated via different decentralized applications, DeFi sector, etc., and contribute to the development of the ecosystem. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right, so I think for staking, it actually was created after proof of stake. So I think, but actually a lot of people don't really understand what proof of stake is. Proof of stake is actually the mechanism of like proving that someone has the ownership of the stake, and then you when you stake on a network, actually means that you are putting some stake on the network, meaning that you try to contribute. You prove that you have the ownership of the network, and then you would like to contribute to the network so that when there is inflation, you get the rewards, but actually those are not rewards. Those are actually the byproduct of punishing those people that didn't stake. Because at the end, as the owner, and then you contributed to the network, meaning you would get more tokens. And then if you stake again, you would have more, you actually have more distribution or higher ownership of the network rather than those didn't stake. So I think this is also why we would also saying that after staking, we are actually securing the network, because by ownership, only those who support the network would secure their tokens there. And then we are using that locked value to secure these transactions. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot. Who's staking in this room? Raise the hand. MultiversX. Who's taking MultiversX tokens? Ethereum? And other chains? Okay, so there's a lot of MultiversX fans, which you could guess, right? But like, I mean, you said it, right? In simple terms, like staking is the fact of collateralizing your assets at the protocol level to secure the network, and in exchange you validate transaction and you get rewarded for it. It's the primary yield of crypto, it's the most natural, and it's the base of most of DeFi when you actually create a liquid staking token on top of it. But I guess we'll discuss the liquid staking afterwards.
Yeah, you dived right into it, and that's great. I think staking, we already decided that it's really important for the ecosystem. But now let's look into what is there besides staking. So the trends in the staking industry. So Laszlo has rightly pointed liquid staking. When you stake your tokens on a blockchain, they get locked in a smart contract and you cannot use them. The beauty of it, you are always in control of your funds if it's a non-custodial staking solution. And I think this is an understated thing that with blockchain, you can have always control of your assets. To me, that's mind-blowing. That's the main reason I'm here today as a staking provider, because I can offer staking services to friends, family, and anybody without asking them to trust me with the custody of their funds. For me, that's crucial. Of course, there are other forms of staking, custodial staking, but the main power, I think, for me, is that people can always be in control of their funds without having to trust me to take care of them. So, besides locking your tokens, maybe we can dive deeper into liquid staking. So, liquid staking, when you stake your tokens, you get something in return, a different token. Not the same token, but many times with a value similar to, or very similar to the tokens you staked. But this raises many questions and many complications, so I'd like to take your opinion on liquid staking. Maybe start with Laszlo.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of staking is that you get rewarded to secure the network, right? And you get this natural yields, inflation plus network fees. The disadvantage of staking is when you stake your asset, you're locked to a certain amount of time, depending on the protocol. So what liquid staking does, it's mint a token that represents your position that is staked, that is locked, and this token is liquid, so you can move your position from like liquid staking MultiversX token or liquid staking Ethereum back to Ethereum or MultiversX, so USDC, USDT, or you can play this liquid staking token on the rest of DeFi. In that sense, staking is not DeFi, but liquid staking becomes DeFi and the first product of DeFi that can flow on the rest of protocols, lending and options and perpetual and so forth. So yes, I guess that's what liquid staking is about.
Go ahead.
Right. So, but so I understand that a lot of people would like to get more yields with your asset, and that is why there is liquid staking. And then basically you can move the liquid staked tokens into different DeFi protocol and get more yields. And you don't actually lose your original token staked in the network. Well, which actually you are still helping to secure the network. But somehow, I would also like to emphasize that we don't, somehow, I would say staking should not be only be used on DeFi. So like in the previous panel, they talked about governance. So basically for like Cosmos ecosystem, we talk a lot about governance. Like on Cosmos Hub, you stake Atom, basically meaning that you have the right to vote on chain. That is the benefit that you can get. But of course, you can choose, don't use that benefit. And so if we think about that, I would see for the future, or the trend, I would like to see if there is any other creative way of staking. For example, like NFT staking. Why I mention NFT staking? Because I always would like to see if there is any way to support some musicians and like the talented musician or those musicians who are underdog. Not because right now a lot of musicians are still controlled by a lot of great labels, big labels, or maybe they are not. Even if they try to do their own businesses on Spotify or Apple Music, they don't really get enough rewards from them. They don't get a fair pay. So I would like to see, for example, like if some musician, they issue NFTs and then you can stick on, the NFT. It's very similar to, for example, Eddie. If you have a chance to buy a Joe Satriani signed Chrome Boy, for example, I guess you would just keep it, right?
Of course.
All right. So that actually means that you hold that token, and then the staking also means that you have the ownership of that token. Once you stake, if you don't move it, it also creates another value. So that action actually means that as a fan, I'm supporting that musician, that artist. And then if I stake and I don't move it, the time being staked is another layer of value. So it's not only the value that you trade the NFTs, right? So by being staked, by NFT being staked, I can see that we can actually create more values on that. And for example, if I buy an NFT issued by an underdog musician and then I stake it, showing that I would never sell my NFT. And maybe by buying the NFT, I'm actually giving him or her some financial support. And then he or she can continue her journey and then create more great content. And at the end, I can get more rewards from that artist. So that would create more creative staking or economic value giving back to the staking.
For those of you that don't know, Kwon was talking about Joe Satriani, the greatest guitar who ever lived, who is still alive, greatest guitar player. But what I got from his comments now is that when you stake something, you're placing your value somewhere. And when you get some rewards from that value, liquid staking, right? You can place it again somewhere else. So that's a really interesting point. You're placing your value, you're locking something you value, and you get rewards for doing that. So basically, that's what staking is, locking value in a smart contract.
Yeah. And actually, that is a support on, just think about that. While you lock on MultiversX, if you lock, if you stake on MultiversX, maybe like a later time, maybe you only see the yield. But if you're an early supporter of MultiversX and then you stake at the very beginning, at the very early stage, actually you are supporting the network because you believe in the network, right? I think we should step back and think about why we have to stake at the very beginning.
Thank you.
Yeah, I suppose Laszlo and Juan mentioned a lot of about liquidity staking. However, we also should remember that it is a good thing to start invest into liquidity staking and just some traditional staking, as it lets you have more control of your part of your funds. So you can use it in the decentralized applications, in DeFi, simultaneously as you get rewards just as regular staking. However, we here could have some kind of infinite vicious circle where you, like a risk-taking thing, when you put your value into some platform, get the liquidity token, then you risk-take it, then you get the reward, then you risk-take it, and you have this cycle. I hope that we won't be trapped in this kind of thing, and we here need to use this value that we receive, so use in the DeFi space, in the applications and all this thing.
That's a very good point that you raised there. We had Julian on stage in the previous panel, and I think he would be maybe a good candidate to answer the next question. What are the dangers of playing too much with liquid staking? When you stake, you take the liquid token and then you stake somewhere again, and then you take the result of that and then you stake again, and you go into a vicious circle, you go down the rabbit hole, and then you don't know where the value is anymore by the end of that. So maybe as a last question, maybe I'd like you guys to address this. What are the dangers of not using the ecosystem, of just trying to get all the yield possible? And maybe we won't mention Terra here. But, you know, it's an example. It happened. And not just because of that, but it's one of the things that happened. So threats in staking?
Yeah, I guess there's two main risks in using liquid staking tokens, and they are inherent to DeFi risk, right? The first one is the smart contract risk. When you stake at the protocol level. So there's a smart contract for Ethereum staking, for example, but it's a smart contract that is quite simple, has been audited, is managing 43 billion of assets. So if it gets hacked, we have other problems in crypto, I guess. But I mean, yeah, the smart contract risk, obviously, when you stake your assets in a liquid staking protocol, you pool your assets in a smart contract that is governed by a DAO. So the risk of this contract being hacked, the risk of the DAO to update, or give a certain governance update that could be detrimental to the security of the network, this is the first risk. The second risk is exactly what you mentioned, and I'm sure Julien was here prior, has been playing a lot of this game. It's the systemic market risk, right? When you use the liquid staking token in other DeFi protocols to get more yield, and then you reuse this position in other DeFi protocol to get more yield, and you have this evil DeFi circle and loop that expose the liquid staking token to maybe depeg from the underlying assets that is the Multiverse or the Ethereum that you staked. So I guess yes, that's the two main risks. And when you are using a liquid staking protocol, you should know that it's less secure than staking, for sure. You should know your risk. It has advantages, but it has disadvantages in the security aspect of things.
Do your own research. Always.
Yeah, do your research. Look at and definitely the market risk is decreasing, the most liquid the liquid staking token is as well, right? There's less chance for the liquid staking token to depeg. For example, Lido, which is the most liquid staking token in the market right now, you know, than just liquid staking protocol that is launching it as no liquidity.
Yeah, the risk. So Elena mentioned about the term restaking, right? I think restaking is also a hot topic right now. And yeah, so I think a lot of people heard about EigenLayer, right? So the EigenLayer is, well, they're building that, and then it's about restaking. So the idea is to use the liquid stake tokens and then restake again. And then it restake to some other chains to secure that chain. And while the risk, you can think of the risk so easily, because if there is anything happening on the other chain that would create slashing events, then the liquid stake token would be reduced. And then what would happen to the stake token on Ethereum, right? So, so there are a lot of risks we have to take care. And it's just leverage too much if you keep restaking it. And then, so to me, I would say, if we are actually thinking of liquid staking, maybe only one layer of leverage is already enough. And we should think about how to generate some valuable economic value rather than just looking at use or like, you know, that is fake. Think about that. If it's all about inflation, then, yeah, we are in Romania, right? So think about Romania had once been like 250% inflation sometime before, yeah, like years ago.
Probably.
So, yeah, probably, yeah. So it doesn't make the economy sustainable, right? So we better think how we can create more economic value, making use of the asset or the fund that we have stake, rather than chasing for use. That would make the bubble bigger, and then once crash, it will become another turmoil, just like Terra.
Yeah, actually, this is the thing that I wanted to also to mention, because as I've mentioned earlier, blockchain as an industry is very early on, and we are on the early stages. And we here need to remember and understand that we are here not only for the liquidity. We'll have from staking, from liquid staking, from restaking, from cross-staking, and blah, 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 blah. We need to build the value behind it. We need to have the value behind it, because if it's only about locking your tokens, getting the rewards, and then locking your tokens, it's kind of a bubble that has nothing to deal with the real economic. So we have the example of the Web 2, and when we have the money to have some goods, we have the money to have some services, and it is not only about having these assets, but using these assets. And we are at the moment, we are at the stage when we are building the entities, we're building the services, and it is important for users, for just a regular user, to understand that we're here not just like Bitcoin, some kind of a currency, I will use it and I will double my yields, but I will use it for some Web3 services, and it is important to remember them and bear in our minds.
Thank you very much, Alina. I don't know if you guys have any extra comments. If not, I think we can wrap this up. And maybe in closing, just go over what was said here. You know, staking comes from proof of stake, which is a consensus algorithm, right? Which, by staking, we jointly decide that these transactions are valid in the network, and we keep the network alive. So staking is a really, really important part of a proof of stake blockchain. MultiversX is a really cool proof of stake blockchain, and if we use staking and we decide to push it to its limits, and we go through liquid staking, and we decide to wash, rinse, and repeat, do that over and over again, there are risks involved. And maybe think that when you are staking, you are locking your value somewhere. And if that value is gone in the end, if you're only trying to milk the cow for the last drop of milk, right? If I'm allowed this comparison, this is not a sustainable ecosystem. So I think if all of us just zoom out and look at what everybody's trying to build here, and maybe we can all build, even as delegators, we've been asked to build even from day one, and then to build bridges. But I think every delegator can consider himself or herself a builder, right? You're locking some value in a smart contract, contributing to the networks, and you're getting a reward for that, right? But if you're trying to get all the possible yield and trying to game the system constantly, it cannot end well. Maybe it will not end well for you, maybe it will not end well for others, but maybe just everybody just try to zoom out and see how we can contribute to the well-being of Web3 in general, blockchain, and in our case, MultiversX. Thank you very much for bearing with us. It's 6 o'clock in the evening. We have another panel coming up. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Gentlemen, hello, 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 and hello everyone, please. Welcome to the last panel of today. Amazing to see people still here. Woo! All right. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Today's panel is about wallets and exchanges, or wallets, for lack of a better word. We suggested we call it something about the fusion of usability, security, and innovation. Let me first introduce our distinguished guests. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Sever. I'm from the internet. I work with MultiversX on coaching startups that build in the ecosystem, and today is my pleasure and honor to host our distinguished guests, which I will introduce now. So next to me, we have Dorian from KuCoin. Dorian leads the European local activities of the company, as well as business development for both retail and institutional investors in the EU. Before joining KuCoin, Dorian had already worked as a business development manager for several leading cryptocurrency exchanges while pursuing a PhD in economics at the University of Côte d'Azur. Let's welcome Dorian.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right. Then we have Pierre, right? Thank you. Pierre currently leads the business development department at Trust Wallet. His journey in the world of cryptocurrency began in 2017 when he launched his own company. After a year of involvement in the DeFi space, he joined the Trust Wallet team. His primary focus at present is on DeFi integration and strategizing the most effective approach to bringing Web3 to the mass market using Trust Wallet. As such, he is now responsible for integrating a variety of different projects with Ledger and explaining the open platform approach Ledger is currently focusing on. Welcome, Pierre. Let's welcome him. And last but certainly not least, we have Fabrice. Fabrice is an engineer who started his crypto journey more than 5 years ago. He first joined Ledger as a product manager for hardware wallet applications. Fabrice told me to leave this out, but I think it's important because Fabrice said he survived 2 long crypto winters, one of us, survived 2 long crypto winters, participated in 3 new hardware wallet launches, and I think you know them, NanoX, S+, and the Ledger Stacks, and was involved in more than 20 blockchain protocol additions to Ledger Live, including, of course, MultiversX. Fabrice is now head of developer ecosystem at Ledger. Let's welcome Fabrice.
Hello.
All right. So as you can see, we have the entire spectrum of wallet products here represented from hot to cold. The spectrum exists because this type of products are faced with a, let's say, kind of like a usability versus security dilemma. Or otherwise said, the more control a user has over their funds, the more complex the security measures. And on the other hand, the more user-friendly the product, the larger amount of trust has to be placed in a third party. Your products have made remarkable achievements in both areas, but the space is getting crowded. Multiple chains, layers, bridges, more products on all of them, and inherently new security areas. And to complicate matters further, we have all the crypto nerds already in. So future growth of your products and crypto in general hinges on getting in, let's say, new coiners, no coiners, right? So first of all, did I get it right? Is there or is there not a dilemma between security and usability when building products such as yours? Can the two be worked together into a solid yet enjoyable product? And what are some interesting trends that you see developing in this area? Can we first start with, please, Fabrice?
Okay, so your question is about security versus usability.
Is there this dilemma?
Yeah, I think there is a dilemma in the sense that it's a bit like doors, okay? You can have doors that are super easy to open. If you don't put locks in it, it's super easy, but it's not safe at all. So Ledger is a hardware wallet company. We really rely on hardware to provide security. And obviously, this comes at a cost for usability. So our mission at Ledger is to try to make your experience as easy and as convenient as possible without compromising on security. And this is a real challenge. And I think it's a challenge for us, but it's a challenge for everyone in the industry. You try to have a better UX, but you still want to ensure that your users are safe in whatever they're doing. So at Ledger, we do new hardware. We try to launch new ones, every couple of years. So the last one is the Ledger Stacks you said earlier. But we have other initiatives. We try to partner with many actors in the industry to try to make either staking safer. So I saw the CEO from Kiln earlier, so we worked with them. And we worked with anyone in the industry to really make things smoother. Now, innovation is not just about Ledger, and I think we should take a deeper look into probably any security improvement that exists at protocol level. I know MultiversX did something recently about that. But also, we should probably take a deeper look into smart contract wallets. They will probably change the way we deal with security because they will add, new ways to handle policies, I would say, depending on whatever is your risk profile, for instance. So yeah, many things to come, and it's a real challenge. That's where innovation is coming from.
Okay, thank you so much. I like the comment about the door. It's like easiest way. There's no door. You just walk through, right? It's great, and it's always a challenge. I think in the middle somehow, although if you think of your phone as a hardware device, it's Pierre from Trust. What's your take on this, Pierre?
I think that this dilemma about usability and security, it's a shared dilemma for all the DApp and the Web3 actors. From a wallet perspective, I would say we could see the security divided into major space, the physical security, where you are going to require from your user to perform some action on the device itself, and the more digital security, where it's more where the product is going to implement some system to protect the user from potential attack, or sometimes from the user itself when it's not educated enough. So as a software wallet and mobile app, mainly in a broader extension, we are focusing mostly on the second part, on the digital security, where our engineering team do its best since the very beginning to make all our users safe. This comes from some small innovation, but a continuous innovation through iteration. Some examples are, for example, the cloud backup for your passphrase, when now you can easily move your wallet from one device to another without having to use your passphrase yourself and to make it vulnerable. This comes from the security scanner we have inside the app. When you're trying to connect to a smart contract, you will be warned if this smart contract is a scam or if any suspicious activities happen recently on this smart contract. So security can have lots of form, but yeah, as a software wallet, we are more focused on the second one. Because it's always, everything can be more secure, but as Fabrice said, it's basically, it depends what user experience do you want to offer. Ledger is a hardware wallet. It could be compared to a safe. Trust wallet could be compared to a wallet, a real wallet, a physical one, or maybe a gateway, like your bank to your bank account, but not your savings itself.
All right, thank you. The interaction with the smart contracts, it's so much of a problem. We had this discussion with Robert, who takes issue with protocols which are built in a way that accessing a smart contract can take over then the rest of your contents of your wallet. It's kind of like with email, like if you subscribe to a bad newsletter, then everyone has access to your whole drive and inbox. So I think that's a great, other protocols are built this way, so I think it's great that you brought this up. Dorian, what's your hot take on this?
Well, first, I hope I'm not scaring everybody too much, because I'm supposed to be the bad guy on stage, hot wallet against cold wallet. We have had this divide for a long time now. But I want to say that I use all the products on stage as well, so it's kind of, it's very reassuring to see you guys, and I'm actually as curious as everyone to hear what you have to say on this topic of security overall, coming from the cold wallet ecosystem. So at KuCoin, we take the approach to be user-centric because there is a dilemma between usability and security. That's obvious. We have seen it. We look at the data that we have from our users, the use cases that they do with the security measures we provide for them. There seems to be kind of a consensus right now about the level of security that is accepted as major use, used by the majority. That seems to be around the two-factor authentication. If you don't have that, you're a bit lagging behind. By the way, don't want to scare anybody off, but that's kind of a fact now. And you can think of it as what's your goal in the end. If your goal is to provide maximum security, probably what you would have to do in a very figurative way for everyone to follow us would be to silo every entry point of access to the diverse assets or class of assets or whatever belongings you have, meaning that you would have a different password for that, different second authentication factor for each one later on, etc., etc. And you could reproduce that overall. Then you can perfectly see that the usability of that would be very complex, that not a lot of people would follow these processes. And on the other extreme, you would have the person having one single entry point for all assets, like you would have a merge account of all your assets, all your belongings with one password, or even not even a password, let's say. So let's say that our goal is to obviously avoid both extremes, and as we all have a responsibility to our users on stage, we take security pretty seriously, and we have been providing measures for our users to access what can be seen as the standard of security measures these days that is most accessible to everyone. So once again, second authentication factor. We have actually had some kind of interesting data when we implemented the anti-phishing messages, anti-phishing option on our on accounts. People who actually used that had an 80% chance 80% chance less chance, to be a victim of a phishing, successful phishing attempt. So when you have some kind of feedback on the security measures you take, it's always better, always has to be user-centric, because in the end, what's our goal? I think we all have the same goal, even if we are walking there in a different way. We want mass adoption to come. We are working to develop products for mass adoption to become a thing. And in order for that to happen, we still need to consider usability and our users in the first place.
Thank you for that. And you know, I think everyone here uses all kinds of products. I know myself, you know, I'm the kind of people, like, I'm not the kind of person, before I even understand it,
Because
I'll
they're
just buy
not
a ledger
mutually
first.
exclusive.
Yeah, I'll get a ledger first, but almost nobody is really used to such products, right? So I think, you know, it makes more sense to start with a hot wallet for people who just, I don't know about this stuff. Can I call someone, right? It's just people who download an app. So I think you really, guys, cover all the spectrums here. And I think also, to segue in the next one, the functionalities that you guys offered, like, have way gone beyond just sending and receiving tokens in your wallet. It's crazy, right? I mean, what are we have payments, investments, yield hunting, staking, NFTs, so many others have turned wallets into multiple purpose blockchain apps, if we can call them that. So where are we on the evolution of wallets, if we can still call them that? Like, will it continue? And if so, what are some of the potential new features that excite you the most? Pierre, can you please take this first?
Yeah, as you said, the user needs changed a lot in the last couple of years. Trust Wallet has been launched in 2017, and at this time, the main concern for the user was to have all their token and blockchain supported in one place. So this was the first initial mission of Trust Wallet, to make the indexing of all the token easier for everyone. Now, since, as I said, a couple of years, the needs change. Users want to have more native experience with some DeFi and Web3 services. Today, wallets, self-custodial wallets, can be seen as the main door, the main gateway of the Web3 world. So it's our mission to make it accessible to the mass market, basically. So at Trust Wallet, we started by implemented native swap, cross-chain swap directly inside the wallet, to let our user not only hold their token, but also to have the ability to swap them as soon as they want to do it on a very safe way, without having to connect to an external DApp and potentially connect to the wrong one. Recently, we launched staking inside the app, also on a self-custodial way, because it's something very important for us. We don't want to have the custody of the funds. We want to have everyone owner of their own coin and tokens. So we launched these staking services, on-chain staking services, recently inside the app. In the futures, we are working on other native integration to make Web3 way more accessible to everyone, because currently, even for lots of our users, or lots of wallet users, connecting to a DApp, it's something who can be painful if you never did that. Providing liquidity, supplying funds, this will require time for someone to start crypto now. So one of our mission is to make this action very simple and very straightforward directly from the wallet, to make the major services directly available inside Trust Wallet. Okay.
That's interesting with the staking. I think immediately when people buy it, it's like, where do I stake it, right? I think it's welcoming them. Okay. Dorian, what's happening on your side?
Well, I think in our case, it's kind of, we are the wallet as the exchange globally. So the way we are working is to be more and more transparent. I hope we will reach a level of transparency that will be always higher and always matching the expectancies, legitimate expectancies of the users. Today we are talking about proof of assets that are being delivered every month. It's something that is state of the art right now in our industry, but it was very hard to make it a thing. And when you compare ourselves to our traditional, let's say, competitors, which is traditional finance, you don't have that. It doesn't exist. You have a balance sheet once a year, and that's about it. So we are already reaching a level of transparency that is higher than it was. Hopefully will continue to increase. Then in terms of where wallets are heading, generally speaking, I mean, that would be a personal take, not the take of KuCoin or the exchange. Yeah, there is a tendency for more functionalities, obviously, even the case on hot wallets. Then, yeah, I'm actually more curious to know about what Pierre and my colleague has to say from Ledger's perspective.
Okay. Let's hear from Fabrice. Ledger Live has been becoming this thing. What's next?
I think in many ways we're very similar to Trust Wallet in that regard, because we always thought that people wanted to have a multi-chain app in some sense. I don't like the words wallet, because it may be a paradox, but I always say hardware wallet on one side, I talk about application on another side, because really at the end of the day, the first question is, what about the self-custody aspect? That's the first question you have to ask yourself. If you store your coins on an exchange, it might be very good for you, but you don't have the key management on your side. This makes it different. I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just different than having your own key to manage. If on top of that you add the hardware wallet, then it's even more different, and you have to manage a device on top of the application. Now, we all agree that there are more chains, more use cases. Now everyone sees the balance, the transaction history. Now everyone think about staking, and everyone is going to this one single app that can do everything. Xportal is doing the same, by the way, guys. So everyone is pushing in the same direction, and staking is part of the journey. NFTs sometimes are part of the journey. DeFi, or sometimes you have this type of browser. I think you guys have that, a browser to experience DeFi dApps within the application itself. I don't know what's next. I honestly don't know, but I see a tendency or a convergence between what used to be exchanges' role, like buying and swapping coins, and wallets historically that were just to hold and see and perform easy transaction. Now the two are really merged together. So it's not really a wallet, it's not really an exchange anymore. It's kind of this new thing. And I love the way you framed it. I don't remember the name that you used, like multi-purpose
blockchain app.
It's exactly this.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's next. No one saw the NFT hype coming, or if we saw it very late. So maybe we will discover something new in a couple of months. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. It's everything goes around, like every functionality that exists in an app. Of course you want to have it because you want to have users in your product. So it's more and more. And I think I will skip the next question because I think it's more and more getting about identity, right? I think, the more you look about it, I care more about my wallet and my seed phrase than I care about the picture, the plastic piece of plastic that I have with my picture on it. So I will go and ask this question about digital identity, because I think, for lack of a better term, I think all of these super apps are more super apps, a lot of features, a lot of blockchains. They're all centered around me or you or the user, right? So have you thought about digital identity in your product becoming like a core thing and evolving into maybe one day replacing the pieces of plastic that we use, and to work this into your product? And maybe can you Fabrice start with this? Or sorry,
who starts?
Fabrice, sorry. I looked at Pierre. Sorry.
Okay.
I just met them before we walked on stage. It's my fault.
Yeah, I agree with what you just said. I think identity will be a big thing in the future. I saw, I think recently in Brazil, they did something with a blockchain for identity. I think there is something in Estonia as well. I honestly don't know anything about these projects, so I don't know if they are valid or decentralized enough. But right now, everything we do is very much digital already. Your photos, your assets, your NFTs, your cryptos. Everything is digital, so why not put your own identity in a digital form as well? Now the real question is, who is the best suited to safeguard your digital identity? I believe you should be in charge of your digital identity, but there is no standard yet. I don't think we all agreed on a standard to have decentralized identity, but it's definitely something. With your last question, maybe that's the next big thing. You have some ENS stuff that are very widely used now, but it's not a KYC on the blockchain yet, So maybe we'll get there at some point, but I think we need to be super careful handling both identity and privacy on the public ledger. That's a tricky one, I think, for innovation.
I feel you, and then the more importance this digital identity gets, I think the more hard for people will be to answer the question, do I really safeguard this myself because it's important, or do I entrust it with someone so I can get some help if I need this? Dorian, how do you feel about this?
I would say that then you're back to square one. You came in this space to evade the third party for trust, and actually that's the risk with like digital ID. You will always have something in the real world, something, someone, an institution to guarantee that it actually exists in the physical world. So in some ways, it's you could make the case that it's the same with most of the tokenization of physical assets. It's bringing back a third party, necessary trusting third party for you to be able to actually use this kind of functionality. Then once again, it's kind of the users who will decide, because in the end, when you're an exchange, but even when your company is working in the space, you're user-centric. You need to put the desires of the users first. If the users actually have a desire to use such a digital identity, and then we find a way to implement it, it will be our role as an exchange, like companies in the Web2 space, to create the products that will allow them to this functionality on our platform and others.
No, I agree that the people come to blockchain space for removing the trusted layer from third parties. Maybe we're one unexpected invention away from a link between our consciousness and our identity and funds. What do you think, Pierre?
I agree about the fact digital identity or DID may be one of the next hot topic in our space. The tricky part on that is currently your identity is 100% managed by the government. They are defining the rules about what's a true ID card or a true passport and what's a fake one. So currently, from a blockchain perspective, we still need to trust some private company who is going to attest this user is using a true passport or a true ID card in your application before to store it on the chain. On the current state, something which is the closest to DID, it's, in my opinion, the proof of personhood. It's a decentralized way to prove you're unique on chain. So no one knows your identity, but we are sure you don't have another wallet with the same, for the same person. This may help to reduce the number of bots or scams inside the ecosystem. So I think we still have a long journey before to have DID, but something close to, proof of personhood could be one of the first iteration of this for wallets and DeFi in general.
Thank you for that. I think it's, like you said, maybe not fully DID, but more in this direction. I think it's unavoidable and so badly needed, right? Okay, we have a last question here. It's one of my favorites, because every time I check my social feeds, artificial intelligence seems to have made yet another leap forward, right? The rate of progress in AI seems to be accelerating, and its implications are so broad that they at least cover everything digital, if not also beyond and into the physical space. What are your thoughts on artificial intelligence and its impact on crypto, and how are you considering it in the context of developing your products? Dorian, can you please take this first?
So actually, I was speaking about this topic with you this morning on the innovation stage. At KuCoin, once again, the community approach, we went to our users to know first what they wanted and if they liked the idea of artificial intelligence, which is kind of a buzzword these days. You see it as a narrative that's bringing lots of traction to the market. But what people see is the products that they interact with on the day-to-day basis. So that has been ChatGPT, for example, Midjourney, the products that like generative AI, things that the general public has been able to interact with. When we surveyed our user base, so it's our user base, that's what it means, but it's already like people that are that are using crypto savvy. So you would expect them to be more tech savvy overall than the general public. There is a clear majority that want to use AI, that is interested in AI, not a super large majority, actually, more close to 60%, and we did it many times, and it's always close to 60%. Then when you look at what they would like to see from AI integration, we have about 40% of respondents who think that AI is going to improve security overall. So developing AI products to improve security seems to be among the concerns of people. Then we have products that are more oriented towards having a personal assistant for trading, for example. 40% of people are also interested in this. So that are the two main functionalities that our user base has been kind of asking for. That's why actually we developed, so first, AI we are using in terms of support, where right now we are training our own generative AI from the support requests of our customers so that it gets more and more efficient. So at some point it will be able to handle lots of support requests much faster and much more efficiently. Why more efficiently? Because we realize that sometimes what our users are saying about their problems is not what we are saying about their problems. So maybe an AI that has enough experience dealing with the way people are stating what they're seeing going wrong on the platform is a better way than us doing the trick. But then when do you put the human in the end, it's another problem. And we'll have time to discuss about this. Also products, definitely using a machine learning algorithm to enhance trading options. So now we have the option for people who use trading bots for them to implement machine learning with their bots. They will automatically adapt on the range of price. For example, for spot grid and futures grid, you will have the bot will automatically adapt to the new range of price if there is a downturn or an upturn in the market. So you can continue using the bot with updated parameters.
All right. Interesting set of things there and interesting results from your audience. Fabrice, what do you think?
So I think I agree with you on the support part. We did something. It's not in production. It's an internal job, but we do have the same engine that was trained to better answer customer support. Now, I was talking with a colleague earlier, and he told me AI is a tool. It's not the perfect solution for everything. So the question is, how can we leverage this tool to improve our products? Customer support, definitely. Trading is probably something I would not have thought of. I wouldn't go as far as design and product development. We're not there yet, I think. But I would be very cautious into forcing the merge of buzzwords. Crypto and AI don't necessarily have to live together. Maybe there will be some use cases that our users will ask for, but maybe there will be none. And we need to try and fail a lot before actually finding out the answer to this problem.
I like this view because everyone's like super excited. Yes, AI will change everything. Let's wait and see. I think that's a very try and
there
wait
is
and
one
see.
thing in AI that at least ChatGPT did very, very well. Crypto, it's been like, 10 years? We still have people that don't understand what's it for. Like, what's the value proposition? ChatGPT, you give it to your grandmother, and she's like, oh my God, it's magic. And so we need to have this wow effect from crypto in some ways. Us here, we know that crypto has a wow effect, but for the normal people, I would say, it's maybe a bit more difficult. So I hope we can bring this wow effect to crypto as ChatGPT did with AI.
I think the only chance for us with crypto is to hide it so well in products that people don't notice it's there. But I think it's, again, we're a few inventions, I think, away from that. Pierre, what do you think?
I agree with Fabrice about the fact AI, it's a tool, not an end. So basically, we should be able to fix the problem we are going to use the tool on. The most evident use case that Dorian said and Fabrice about the support, which I think almost all the crypto company, also based on what you just said about the fact crypto is still complex for a retail user. And so we have a lot of demand in terms of support. So AI can be a very interesting solution for us to improve our efficiency on this area. Another aspect, it has been mentioned too, is security. I talk about our security scanner at Trust Wallet, and this is also a good use case to train an AI to help user to anticipate potential scam before it happens, based on the unfortunate long history of scam in crypto. we have a very huge database about it, and training AI to detect this kind of scam or fraud could be also something very useful for a user in terms of a real use case. But otherwise, yeah, agree about all the product thing. Well, I'm not sure AI is still better than our developer team to build a product.
So you are already using it for coding, but you like the human code better, or not at all?
We are not using it to build the code. We may using it sometimes to win sometimes, but not to build a complete product.
Okay. All right. Good. I think that's the smart way to go. Take it easy. You know, we've seen what hype brings, especially in the crypto space. But I think it's great to have an eye on this technology. And overall, gentlemen, it was a great discussion. Thank you, and thank you all for being patient until the end. Let's give a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and thank you. And sorry for my mix-up. I'm old. Sorry.
Thank you all.
Thank you very
bye.
much. So before you go, you have to know that tonight we also have some side events. If you want to check out xdayevents.com. Actually, side events, I think they're parties, so you're welcome to join them.
All right, try not to stay too late tonight. Try to take care of the party. See you tomorrow, 11 a.m. open event. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much.